Good morning, class, and welcome to a brand new week of language arts. It is beautiful outside and sunny, so I thought I would sit out on my porch for today's lesson. Sorry if there is some background sounds. This week is going to be a big week for our class for a few reasons. Coming up, we will have Mrs. Gross, our head of school, come and give a guest lesson on poetry, different types of poetry. And I won't even spoil any of what she's going to talk about because I want to let you guys experience that firsthand. That'll probably be tomorrow. And then maybe at the end of the week, we will have a lesson with Mrs. Sweeney. That might be next week, but maybe at the end of this week, in which she'll talk a little bit about photography, because ultimately where this poetry unit is going is you will stop reading poems and start writing your own poems, and it'll be paired with a little photography project where you have to go outside. No more sitting around and watching videos. You'll go outside and you'll take some pictures, probably of something in nature. Maybe you want a person in your picture as well, though. And and then you will be asked to write a poem about the picture that you talked about. Um, so Mrs. Gross's lesson on different types of poetry will help you narrow down what you're looking for and what type of poem you want to write. And then Mrs. Sweeney's lecture or lesson on how to take a good photograph will also pay off for that project. So, two people besides Mr. Anderson who will be giving you some lessons this week, hopefully. But you got me for today, and we're going to talk about one of the greatest poets of all time and one of his most famous poems. So this is William Wordsworth. I'm going to zoom in so you can actually read that. Now we're in presentation mode. A little bit about him. He lived from 1770 to 1850. Some landmark dates to just help put you in the right ballpark. You've probably heard of 1776, which is the Declaration of Independence, when America became the United States of America and it was no longer a part of England. Well, that's close to when William Wordsworth was born. You just know he's going to be a poet with that name, William Wordsworth. He's got alliteration in his own name, all those W's. Anyways, he was part of what we call Romanticism, or the Romantic period, or Romantic literature and poetry. This does not mean just romance as in lovey-dovey. Romance actually has come down from the word from Rome. So if something is from Rome, it's romantic. Now, in the 1800s, when William Wordsworth is living, it actually isn't associated with Romans, as much, but it has to do with the movement in poetry that, here I'll show you the next slide, that puts focus on nature and says that something has gone wrong in society that has made us too distracted with buying and selling things and getting money and fame, and we've kind of become artificial, shallow people because of that. And so we need to get back into nature, and we need to reflect on nature, and then when we reflect on nature, we can write good poetry, and when we write good poetry, we can change how people see the world. These types of poets in the Romantic movement, they remind people that their emotions and their sense of beauty matter. So in the 1700s, there was a lot of talk about how reason was the most important part of a person, their ability to think well. It was reason that was ultimately what humans were for. We were thinking machines. But Wordsworth and all of the other Romantic poets say actually that's not what humanity is all about. We have a sense of beauty, and we need to pay attention to that sense of beauty because it's going to teach us marvelous things. They remind people that their emotions and their sense of beauty matter. Humans are not calculators. We are more than that. And if we follow our guess at what is beautiful, and we pursue that, and we look deeply at beautiful things, then we can become fully human. And last but not least, romantic poetry always has to do with the imagination. As I said, we reflect on beautiful things. It's not just what's in our mind immediately when we see it, but after we experience it, then we go home, make ourselves a cup of tea, think deeply about it, and then write it down. So it's reflective, and we're using our inward eye, you could call it. We're going to come across that word, that phrase in our poem today. What is an inward eye? Well, think about it. There is different types of seeing. There's seeing just like I see my computer screen. You see my face. I can't see your face, unfortunately. I can see that the sun is out. I can see that the skies are blue. All that is seen. But then think about the other type of sight. When someone says insight, what do they mean? Does it just mean looking into your brain or something? I hadn't thought about that until I said it. Um, no, that is not what it means. Insight has to do with understanding something, not just looking with your eyes, but understanding it with your mind. That's what we mean when we say something was insightful. So that's exactly what William Wordsworth and his pals are trying to do. They're trying to see with their eyes the beauty of nature and all that it means, and then they interpret that. They find insight into what it means. So that is the different type of seeing. Furthermore, when you have poetry like this, poetry is portable. You can put it in a book, and then you can take that book with you, right? And then when you read that poem again, maybe sitting somewhere else, like in somewhere you don't want to be, then reading that poem can transport you back to a different place. It has the power to carry you away from your present situation and enjoy a really good memory or a really important memory of a place where you were more in tune with nature or you were just in a happier place. Oh, I think we're ready to read our poem now. So, I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud is the name of this poem. I have a picture of a daffodil up there because that's what this poem often goes by, the daffodil poem, because it talks about daffodils. And so there you have it. It's a yellow flower. It's very beautiful. Sometimes people plant them, and sometimes you just find them in nature. This, of course, because it's romantic poet, is about a poet who is walking about the fields and comes upon not just one daffodil, but a whole field of them, right? And he can't eat it, right? And this is his simple experience enjoying these daffodils. I'm going to pull it up for you so you can follow along. One moment, please, as I find this. Okay, there's the colored edition, which we'll have to do. So there you have the rhyme scheme. I'm going to make it a little larger for you, and now we are ready to read. Oh, can you still see me? Okay, I'll keep it like that. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margins of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show had to me had brought. For oft when on my couch I lie, in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills, and dances with the daffodils. Okay, I just want to read it to you again, but I won't. Don't worry. But maybe you should pause this video and read it again because it's a word. It's a poem that allows for multiple readings and enjoying multiple times. So let's begin at the first stanza, the best place to begin. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high, or, meaning over, vales and hills. So he is wandering alone, kind of like a single cloud that's just floating there. Not a whole bank of clouds, but just one. And it's floating over what? Vales and hills. Well, hills are the high points, right? That's what a hill is. We know that. And then vales are in between the hills, the low point, cradled between the hills. Vale. Another word for it is valley, but he just shortened it up, vale. When all at once, there's a moment here, all at once, I saw a crowd, a host. Host just means multiple. A host of golden daffodils beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. They're not just moving as all flowers do, they are dancing. This is the poet's way of saying that they're alive. We call this personification, right? When we give human attributes to something that is not human. Daffodils have no ability to dance on their own, but the poet says, actually, these daffodils were being human-like. They were dancing. So take that. Um, and they are in the breeze, so they're being blown around beside the lake. How many are there? We have to read to figure that out. In the second stanza, it says, continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way. They stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. So we get more of this dancing imagery where they're not just moving like objects, they are part of this world that is in a sprightly dance, meaning a very energetic and kind of lighthearted dance. 10,000, that's a number. It's probably a exaggeration, or the poetic word for that is called hyperbole. 10,000 that he saw. Maybe there really was 10,000. I don't know what Wordsworth saw. Um, but before that, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Continuous as the stars. So he's using another metaphor or another image. He says, okay, imagine the stars at night. That's how many flowers I saw in this valley. And they stretched never ending. That for sure is hyperbole because they had to end somewhere. They stretched in never ending line along the margin of a bay. A bay is the margin is a line. Bay is like the end of a lake. Where the lake meets the land, that's the bay, and the margin is a line. So the line where the lake meets the land. Sorry, I made that more complicated than it had to be. Along the margin of a bay, 10,000 I saw at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. They are having a day of it. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. Okay, so now there's a little dance party happening in the forest here. The waves are now dancing. They're alive. They're personified, just like the daffodils are. But the daffodils are winning this dance competition like it's nothing to them. They outdid the sparkling waves. The daffodils are having a better time. A poet could not but be gay. Gay simply means happy in poetry. And so when it says the poet could not but be gay, the poet he can't even help but smile in the way that these things in nature, these flowers and these waves are dancing together. They have rhythm, right? It's pleasing to him. In such a jocund company, there's a word you don't use very often. Jocund means lighthearted or playful. So all these words that we don't use very often. Most of them are the poet's way of talking about how playful nature is. I gazed and gazed some more, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. So, this is a romantic poet using an image of wealth. At the beginning of this talk, we said, oh, actually, romantics were trying to get away from all the buying and selling that happens in our everyday world. They're trying to get us to return to nature. So maybe you're raising your eyebrows and you're thinking, why is this poet talking about money in this romantic poem? Let's read on. What was the wealth that this scenery showed him? That's the final stanza and a little bit harder to understand. Let's walk through slowly. For oft when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood. So when you're often sitting on the couch and you're lying and you're kind of thinking, you're being intellectual. Pensive means seriously thinking. You're in a serious mood. They flash upon that inward eye. They, meaning the daffodils. The daffodils come back to him in his inner eye, the inward eye, which is his imagination. He's not actually physically seeing them, he's only thinking about them. They flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. Solitude meaning being alone. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. So, this poet, he had this experience. Now he's bringing it back to his mind. He's thinking about it with his inner eye, and it fills him with pleasure to be back with the daffodils dancing. And his heart starts to dance at the thought of it. What a beautiful poem. Yeah, that's Romanticism. It's not about love. There was a lot of poetry before Romanticism that was about love, but ironically, Romanticism is mostly about the relationship between humans and nature, getting back to our home in nature rather than being removed from it. Okay, rhyme scheme, all the stuff that we've been studying before. Cloud rhymes with crowd, hills rhymes with daffodils, trees rhymes with breeze. So if we were to put that into a little note, we would say, well, clouds is A, hills, that's a new word, B. See how I'm doing this? A, hills, B. Crowd. Does crowd rhyme with anything? We just said it rhymed with cloud, so that's also A. Daffodils. Does dills rhyme with anything? Rhymes with hills, which means this is a B. Beside the lake, beneath the trees. Well, trees, that doesn't rhyme with daffodils, cloud, crowd, hills. It's a new rhyme, so it gets a new letter, a C. And then we have breeze. Breeze doesn't rhyme with anything except for trees, so this is also a C. So when we're writing this down and somebody asks you, meaning me, what is the rhyme scheme? Well, you have to look at these in order now. A, B, A, B, C, C. A, B, A, B, C, C. That's the rhyme scheme is what we call that. Rhyme scheme. Got it? We can do plenty more. This would stay the same in the last three stanzas as well. A, B, A, B, C, C. So that's the rhyme scheme throughout the whole poem. Rhythm, meter. What do we have going on for the rhythm? I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills. Da-dum, 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 da-dum. What do we call that? What kind of foot? Well, I hear an I am. Da-dum, 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 da-dum. And how many are there per line? I wandered lonely as a cloud. 1, 2, 3, 4. That is a tetrameter. Tetra for meter. Iambic tetrameter. You've had a few other poems that have been an iambic tetrameter, so maybe you were able to catch that this time. All right, I'm at like 20 minutes, so I am going to end this lesson now. I'm going to give you another poem to read for our lesson tomorrow. Um, but Mrs. Gross might be teaching you tomorrow, so I'll save my lesson for next time. Yeah, big week coming up. We're finishing up the reading parts of all these poems, and then it's going to be your turn to try to take the skills that you've learned and write your own stuff. And I look forward to reading your poems. It's going to be great. Okay, you all. See you guys later.